The initial idea of a traveling salesman kit seemed like quite a sudden coup de foudre or a light bulb moment, but the general idea had been percolating for quite a while as an interest in such things as campaign-style furniture, intricate secret compartments, and old-fashioned traveling lap desks. I had been looking at revamping an old slope desk and then moved on to cutlery boxes, which seemed to have more interesting shapes and a lower price point. I ran across this old 1930s cutlery box that was described as a sort of altarpiece, with an interior folding compartment, which I could immediately see as some sort of desk. While thinking about what I would need in a modern desk, like an external battery and some speakers, I suddenly thought about how having a sort of salesman kit complete with mnemonic devices would be really helpful to the consultation process in immersive event design, as both an aid in understanding the style of event that the client might want, as well as being demonstrative to them as the sort of immersive techniques that might be used. Since each event design is dependent on the client's desires and can be wholly bespoke, it is often hard to communicate early on in the initial meetings how immersive or interactive techniques might be used to elevate their event from routine to exceptional. In order to encourage the communicative process, as well as demonstrate sensory stimulation, I tried to account for all five senses while still providing the usual information needed in the first meetings, like venue ideas, music, food, and textiles. I tried to account for five overarching categories of clients that can be easily combined for a more tailored profile. These themes are modern minimal, cozy warm, nature and woods, boho tropical, and elegant coastal. These categories are reflected in the smells, some particular taste combinations, fabric samples, sound clips, and lighting. Often in initial consultation meetings, event planners rely on photos to create mood boards that reflect their clients' tastes. While this is even easier now with things like Pinterest, as you can see on my boards for this project, on my account called At My Work Table. On such boards as Box of Curio is my inspiration for my wooden box, and ideas on how to map the design process for this project is on a board called Reflector Journal. While this makes searching and collating easier, it actually limits an early engagement between the client and the multisensory design that I offer. One early issue that came up with immersive design is that while it is becoming more mainstream with the advent of such things as secret cinema, escape rooms, and more widespread immersive theater, it is still primarily thought of as a performative tool. It was often hard for me to explain how immersion works and how this could benefit their event specifically on an initial meeting. By creating this collection of objects that can be felt, tasted, smelled, and heard, I can use multiple senses to illustrate my process, as well as creating a memorable and distinct experience for the client. When looking at this project, I really wanted to have the overall look be clean, modern, light and airy, professional looking, but with textures and layers that made it dynamic, have unexpected or hidden parts, and have a lot of movement and encourage the interaction. My color palette included lots of neutral colors with some pinks and deep burgundy. Now I couldn't find leather that really suited the correct color, so I ended up painting white leather to match, and here is a different collection of paints that show from light to dark what the finished product could look like. I then painted a large piece of fake leather that would go in the interior compartment where my laptop would sit on top of it. My process is based on the thought that in a more time-conscious digital world, there are many people existing on multiple levels at the same time, where they're both on an online world as well as in reality. So that means that a stage experience offers a sense of place to entice guests to stay and engage in the spectacle and spend more time in the experience. When multiple senses are engaged, the experience has a greater chance of creating a lasting impression. Immersive events enrich experiences, even if the viewer just views it aesthetically, or even educationally. But with greater encouragement, they are also given the chance to do and become an active participant, which gives them a greater sense of reality. By creating this indelible impression on the guest for this special day, it'll be remembered as a lasting and authentic experience. To reflect this in my box design, I decided that the first two doors that you immediately open would be the most eye-catching. Both these doors represent all the five senses, and there are lots of things to look at. Your eye can bounce around, and it's really the most enticing part of the box. Everything in the box you can take out and experience. If it's the stereoptagon, where you can view the venues, the speaker, which will help you hear the music, or the sounds and smells, which we do later in the walkthrough that can show you how they relate to different types of clients. The lights, with its own remote that you can change to different types of lighting to create a certain mood or emotion, and also the fabric samples, which can be taken out, touched, unfolded, and really gives a sense of what the client maybe unconsciously wants. You can have a look at the technical drawing, which I'm working on here, which gives you different layers of the design, whether it be the interior or the two open drawers. This can be itself creates an experience as it's on an accordion style rig that can be pulled out or pushed together. And it's all transparent, so you can see how the design of what's being put in the box lays on top of what's already existing. Now, I decided to put the fabric together on some sort of blind, whether it be roller blind, which didn't actually work, or a Roman blind, which is what I ended up making. I prefer to do this rather than what is more traditional with fabric displays, which are more like swatches or a book of swatches that you can flip through. And I really wanted you to see the entire spectrum of samples, have it be very clean, modern, maybe have it in envelopes so you could take it out, put it back in. But I ended up creating these transparent little envelopes that had round holes in them that seemed very slick and clean, that were then put onto this Roman blind that I ended up making. I really liked the idea of a blind that could be unfolded and you can sort of see it as a movement rather than something that you flip and look through. I really wanted it to somehow be an experience, which turned into some sort of blind. I ran into some trouble with the idea of having a roller blind because all of the blinds that I could find to buy were quite thick and wouldn't actually fit in the box. I did want to make one, but found that the idea of having something spring-loaded would be very hard to make. So Roman blind it was, with the rods and the folding motion, which actually worked out because I couldn't really get the envelopes to bend. So that's how it ended up. If I did it again, I would try and figure out a way to have maybe multiple roller blinds so I could have different themes. If I had, or maybe make them interchangeable, so if I knew sort of the idea of what a client would like, I could have something specific for them. As it is, I have a variety of different textures, colors, and patterns. But it would be nice to send the client a sample of fabric which gives them some sort of texture as well as images after the initial consultation. So my starting point for the smells, or actually this whole idea, was really from Yankee Candles. They don't actually have, they do have them in the UK, but they don't have the Yankee Candle World that they do in the US, which is kind of like a giant emporium, very theatrical, lots of different rooms with different themes, and really inspired me to use them as a starting point for the scents. I've always liked that their candles have great variety, and also sometimes their names can be quite out there or hard to describe. It's not like you can really imagine what the smell of moonlight would be, but it is in the box. So have a smell and tell me if you think that it actually smells like moonlight. But it's interesting that they take quite abstract thoughts and try and distill them into a scent, which really inspired me because I feel that it's often hard for clients to put into words what they want from you. So to also give them something to smell really helps engage them on multiple levels and communicate in different ways. So I really tried to have a variety of candles that also fitted into my 5 categories. But really it could be used in a variety of ways to give a really nuanced view of each client. Now, I decided to put everything into little bottles because combined with the idea of this lighting, I really liked the idea of glass and sort of clarity that came with the bottles. At least the candles could be melted and poured into these little bottles. I did have more trouble with the jelly beans that were a bit larger. It was a bit funny though, the melting process, because I melted them over another candle, which also smelled, and with a spoon, so it did feel a little bit funny or alchemical doing this whole process. So it did turn out the way I hoped, and I do have a wide variety of scents. The coffee beans that are actually in one of the glass jars is actually to cleanse your olfactory palate. So if you do find that your nose is a little overcome, you can try smelling the coffee beans to give a little cleansing freshness. Now, the right drawer was particularly hard because I had to put in tiny drawers. Now, I decided to use plastic, which was kindly laser cut by the technicians. The only problem that I did not think of was to allow for the thickness of the material, so it was a very tight fit in the end. There was also a channel created by adding some wood to let the light sit in comfortably along the interior. Now on this side there is both smells and tastes. And in neuroscience, multiple senses come together in memory creation, synesthesia, or a union of senses that is not just the product of a brain, but also a social product created culturally. This is often seen in marketing, where products are given a sensory aspect which creates a distinct personality by consumers, like the music used in Starbucks to intensify the flavor of the coffee. Or the idea that Doritos crisps can be, quote, the loudest taste on earth. While I may not be selling jelly beans, I am asking the client to connect taste to memory to see if a kernel of an idea is found or just reinforce the importance of taste and food in the event. While you can hire a bar to create bespoke cocktails for you, it is expensive for an initial consultation. But on the fourth shelf, there are a variety of cocktail tastes. Or for a more abstract idea, there are even feeling flavors below in, say, happy or excited. What comes to mind for you?